Oh, hello. Welcome to Al Stock Trades. All right, guys. So in this video here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be talking a little bit about the technicals and going to really focus our discussion on the medical topic. So by the end of this video, you're going to understand what this means. And we're going to go ahead and review the Clover Assistant diagnostic treatment progression for diabetes, Clover Assistant for a CKD disease, chronic kidney disease, and also, of course, the medication adherence for Clover Health, right? This will be a good video, a good deep dive, if you can call that, from someone who understands this and someone who's going to be a doctor literally in next year. And that's pretty much it. We'll go from there. So first things first on the technical side. This is IWM. This is the Russell. We had a red day today, and like I said, we're testing now this new support line here. But I'm anticipating potentially a nice dip opportunity in correspondence now with the a 50-day moving average, and potentially there's a lot of lines of support here, right? Like I definitely think small caps are going to have a really great swing, especially in comparison to the interest rates going down. Now, in terms of Clover Health, today I'm getting some comments regarding Clover Health getting destroyed. Now, again, if I was to ask you, what's changed in the past, just from February 9th till now, we got a new CFO Medicare Advantage, which they haven't even released yet. We have a job offer for SaaS sales. They removed the unprofitable side. And so I would say, if you were to look at it quickly from this angle here, the stock went from 88 cents all the way down to 82 cents. So, but then ultimately it rebounded by 3 cents. So honestly, this is the how do I explain this? If you go to our stock terminal here, our members pulled up some data regarding the shorts, and if you look at the shorts for Clover, the short ratio is for 54.09%. So it's a pretty significant short, right? So I wouldn't really call too much into this, but that's pretty much where we're at now. So it's the last time it dropped this low, it went ahead and bounced to 40% plus. So there's a lot of fundamental changes to the business that aligns with free cash flow positivity this year. I'm worried about 2025 with the 3-star rating, and that's kind of what I'm worried about. And ultimately, the end of 2024, hopefully we hear about the 2026 star rating, which hopefully will be 3.5 stars. But again, it's all about membership retention now. I don't want the membership retention low. So it's all about SG&A cost, membership retention, and star ratings. That's what I'm looking at. But again, let's go ahead and talk about the science here. Again, for people that are not interested, you guys can log off now. So we're going to go ahead and just give you guys some medical knowledge right now. Again, this video is not a medical advice, nor even financial advice. So just verify what we say and take it as a grain of salt. So what I have here, guys, is I have the kidneys, okay? I have the left kidney and I have the right kidney, right? Anatomically, I don't know if this is, would you say it's anatomically correct, but there's discrepancies within the vein structures. But overall, I don't care about the veins and arteries. I just want to talk about the kidney, okay? So we're going to go ahead and look at the kidney. What is the kidney used for? The kidney is used for filtration, right? It's used for essentially peeing out, bad stuff, right? Just good detox, would you call it, right? And the problem is, if you don't have kidneys, you will die. You can live off of one kidney, and kidneys are very vital organs. Okay. So what we're going to do now is within the kidney, we're going to zoom in. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at the upper portions of the kidney, where you'll find these things called nephrons. Okay. A nephron is composed of a glomerulus, which is, think of it like a really weird artery structure. Usually, when we talk about arteries, usually have arteries come in and veins come out. right? Oxygenated blood comes in, deoxygenated blood comes out. The difference here with kidneys is that you have arteries come in and arteries come out, right? There's something called an afferent arteriole, and there's something called efferent arteriole. The way I remember it is E is for affector, so it goes away. Kind of like a away. I know that's A, it means away, but that's just medicine for you. So E means go to the effector site, right? So what we're going to do is now you were born with approximately 1 million nephrons, and over the course of your lifetime, these go ahead and slowly degenerate and die off. And people that technically, do alcohol and lots of other things, they can degenerate these a little bit more faster. And from my understanding, right? So if you go ahead and go from afferent to efferent arterioles here, we're going to go ahead and zoom in there. So now here you have this. We can go ahead and click on this picture here. Okay, that's fine. We'll just go ahead, and what I can do is I can just steal the picture, go here, and then click this, and there it is. So now we're going to zoom in now, and we're going to go in a little deeper into the nephron here, the glomerular capillary. Okay, we went ahead and we just to remind folks, we went ahead and went from the kidney. We went from the kidney. We zoomed in on the overall structure of the nephron. And then now we're going to go in and go ultimately into the arteries of the kidney. So again, you have the afferent, which is coming from your systemic system, and you have your efferent. Okay. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is this picture. This picture is very crucial. Okay. When someone has diabetes, okay, hold on. First off, how do you calculate glomerular filtration rate, GFR? The reason why we're talking about GFR right now is because this is what Clover Health is using and what doctors use to measure the kidney function. So the question is, how do you calculate GFR? So there's an equation, right? So GFR equation, and it's a long, it's a long equation, and there's going to be some modifications to include race. Here's your races. As different races have different GFRs. But ultimately, the most easiest thing to do is you look at the afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole, and think of these as two pipe systems. Okay, this is the glomerular capillary. It's a high pressure system, so ultimately, there's going to be a lot of exchange of protein, glucose. You don't want protein to come out of this, right? Glucose, toxins, etc. There's going to be a lot of going in and out of here. Okay, a lot of chemical exchanges. Okay, and then what ultimately is when you get these chemical exchanges happening here, the same thing here. When you get these chemical exchanges, at the end of the day, it's going to come out of your your renal pelvis here, and it's going to come out of your ureters, and it's going to inject into the bladder, and then you're ultimately going to generate urine, pee, right? Urine, right? For a stock market channel, pee. You're going to pee, okay? So we can look at this urine and do a urinalysis. We can also look at the blood, and we can ultimately see what gets excreted and not. So there's a lot we can derive from the function of the kidney based off of the blood test and urine. So now that we know kind of where the air, if you go put an arrow from here down there, we know that this ultimately is going to turn into urine. Okay. So what happens if I close off this artery here? If I go ahead and close off the efferent arteriole, what's going to happen? Well, there's not going to be a lot of blood going out. So that means if I close this, like think of this as a hose. Okay. Pretend this is like you turn on the spigot of the hose and the water's flowing this way, but all of a sudden you bend, you bend part of the hose. What's going to happen here? You're going to get an increased pressure. I mean, it's simple physics, right? So you're going to get an increased glomerular filtration rate. So what ends up happening is for folks that have diabetes, the natural history of diabetic nephropathy, not neuropathy, nephropathy. Nephro means kidney in medicine world, probably Latin. And what ends up happening is in the beginning, you get hyperfiltration, right? Why? Because you get glycosylation of the efferent arteriole, right? What does glycosylation mean? It means that these glucose molecules basically start glycosylating. Again, guys, listen, this is a high level, like I'm giving you high level understanding of this. So you guys, because I have an idea of what Clover can do in the future, or what if they haven't thought of this yet. So essentially, you get glycosylation of the efferent arteriole. Now, if people that want to read more about this, how to spell glycosylation, you do glycosylation of efferent arteriole, and essentially, the glomerulus is fed by the afferent and efferent arteriole, and chronically elevated glucose levels lead to non-enzymatic glycosylation of the arterioles, where glucose becomes attached to the cellular structure. What ends up happening is it actually goes into the efferent arteriole, which affects glomerular filtration rate, therefore causing initial hyperfiltration and increase in GFR. So I could imagine in the future, right now, like Clover's kind of on this end right now, measuring GFR going down from this angle here. But I assume later on in the future, the models could train patients that, wait a minute, why are these people hyperfiltrating? Like, are they pregnant? Okay, then there's obviously a schematic machine learning algorithm, because pregnancy increases, just the level of creatinine function. It goes down in terms of creatinine levels when you're pregnant. But ultimately, if they could train the model on this, then they could really catch people in the natural history of diabetes. The problem is, are they coming to the doctor at this point of time, right? But what I'm trying to explain to you now is I'm just trying to explain to you how, like, diabetes is related to the kidney, right? Because here we have Clover Assistant use of diagnostic treatment and prognosis of diabetes. Okay. But we also have early detection of chronic kidney disease. For folks that don't know this, let me just go ahead and see if there's a nice graph here. Yeah. So for folks that don't know this, chronic kidney disease can be exacerbated by diabetes. So, and you can ultimately see it in this graph here. So let me just go ahead and explain this graph. So in the beginning, your efferent, the artery that goes away, goes ahead and glycosylates. And it's what ends up happening is, once you glycosylate this, you ultimately get hyperfiltration, right? And then all of a sudden, throughout many years, you get your glomerular hypertrophies, because again, you're cutting down, like, imagine like taking a water hose and you're clamping down on that water hose. You're ultimately going to get a lot of pressure into that glomerulus. If you guys don't remember, again, this is like medicine, so it's hard. This is the glomerulus right here, right? Another picture. That's the glomerulus, right? You're going to get a lot of that high pressure. And that's going to, like, just like a muscle almost, it's going to start hypertrophying, which is a medical terminology for it just gets bigger, right? So now throughout, by the way, these are in years. So after 5 years, you're going to get basically mesangial expansion, which just means, just that glomerulus just gets bigger. You're going to get membrane thickening, right? Forget the medical terminology. I'm going to like demedicalize it for you guys. Then ultimately you're going to get moderately increased albuminuria, right? Which just means protein in the urine. You don't want protein in the urine. I mean, folks that maybe have children, or maybe have seen this, whenever you see protein in the urine, it's called nephrotic syndrome. I think maybe it's rare. I'm not too sure. Again, I'm going to subspecialize in neurosurgery. But again, I take this information seriously, even though I'm not for me, I want to be a MD first, and then subspecialized neurosurgeon second. So I actually take this information seriously, because I want to understand this, because you never know what happens in the future. What happens if like apocalypse happens? You got to know this shit, right? As a doctor, right? So I take this information seriously. So hypertension, you get hypertension, and ultimately you're going to start leaking protein in the urine. Okay. And if you look at the Clover Assistant, and if you analyze the Clover Assistant's showcase, when Dr. Kumar Damaranjan was talking about like the albumin creatinine ratio, they're actually using these types of formulas to figure out what stages do these are these patients at. But overall, again, this is insipid. Insipid is just, so this word here, incipient, it means like initial stages, beginning, kind of almost like a silent, right? This happens kind of silently. Again, the glomerular filtration rate really doesn't really change that much because it's being compensated, but you are getting that increase in albuminuria. So then we have like kind of two mechanisms. Potentially, the AI could basically figure out. Maybe the AI could see this, but the thing is, you need to get the initial data, right? And then ultimately, the AI can see this too. But then all of a sudden, I think Clover Health is in this area here. This is where you get your nephrotic syndrome, overt proteinuria. You have your your Kimson-Wilson's Wilson's lesions, which is kind of indicative for diabetes, diabetic nephropathy. We don't really care about the medical terminology. Just kind of basic words here is, GFR is going down, right? Which ultimately Clover Health, which you can see in this this diagram here, ultimately, Clover Health is able to uh, diagnose, like for example, diagnose CKD patients earlier, which is good because then you're on this side of the graph, you're earlier in the years, right? And then ultimately, Clover Health patients have a higher GFR rate because they're able to maintain, but whether that be medication adherence, which is obviously related to this paper here, medication adherence, because patients are taking their medication and ultimately are able to slow down the glomerular filtration rate decline and keep it like this, which is good, right? It will increase life expectancy because you don't want end-stage renal disease, which is ESRD. Okay, and a lot of people aging. 10,000 Americans are aging. Imagine if these Americans have these issues. If Clover Health can prolong this, then you might prolong ESRD to where instead of ESRD killing the patient, it'll be something else, right? Which ultimately may be a patient dying in their sleep peacefully instead of being on dialysis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now let's go ahead and talk about kind of like diabetes, and let's talk about chronic kidney disease. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the questions if people have any questions. And then overall, we're going to go ahead and talk about medication adherence. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Yeah. So we'll talk about medication adherence again. Again, this is a drug for type 2 diabetes. A very good drug, if I might say. Let's go ahead and just talk about non-adherence. Again, CA with notification. This is percent medical adherence. So overall, you could see that Clover patients are able to adhere to drugs. Let's say they don't pick up a drug. Doctor knows that. They can have a chat. They can figure out what the root cause it is. Patients go ahead and take their medication. By taking their medication, they're able to essentially not have their GFR die faster, and then ultimately, or their glomerular filtration rate, and then ultimately, because let's say they have diabetes and they are taking their oral medications. The oral medications are started approximately around the same time, if based off of this here, but ultimately, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Clover patients start their diabetes medicine earlier than non-Clover patients. And then if you look at the blood sugar indicator, HbA1c, which again measures the glycosylation of sugar within the red blood cell, you can ultimately see that there is a tighter control of blood sugar levels in Clover patients versus non-Clover patients. And by having this tight control, it limits the glycosylation of the efferent arterial system, which you can see here. And by limiting the glycosylation of this, you ultimately don't start this hyperfiltration rate and ultimately begin with your hypertrophy and growth of the glomerulus, which is pathological, which will ultimately extend the degradation time point of GFR, indicating that you will not go to end-stage renal disease compared to, let's say, non-Clover assistant patients. So I hope this was helpful. Again, we went really deep into this, really explaining to you kind of, slowed down into this and just really explained to you kind of how, like, medication control, medication control helps with the control of diabetes, and diabetes control and medication control helps with slowing down the progression of chronic kidney disease. So, like, what I'm basically trying to tell you here is that these papers are not standalone. It's integration. And unfortunately, I may have to say this, unfortunately, Clover Health could do better at speaking to the investors. And it's just one of the, I guess my med school really focuses on, like, okay, so let me give you a little bit about my med school. So approximately 10,000 to 11,000 people apply to my med school, and about only 95, 90, or 100 people get accepted. So I was one of the 100, and ultimately, if you look at that, that's a 0.01%. So that's a that's a 1% acceptance rate, I think, right? That's a 1% acceptance rate. And what my med school basically uh, um, focuses on in the beginning stages is we're like constantly learning new information in med school the first 2 years, but we're seeing patients from the beginning of med school. We see patients every Thursday. When I first started many years ago, and they actually yell at us. I mean, like, not like yell at us, but they like scrutinize us, and they tell us, "Hey, why are you like talking doctor talk to a patient that doesn't have the medical knowledge you have? Don't be a jackass. Don't be a stupid, pompous asshole physician and think that the patient knows what you're talking about. Dumb it down, just like how you are, just like how you didn't know this information. Talk to yourself pre-medical world, right? And I'm not calling like Clover Health these names. I'm just saying, like, they need to follow kind of what medical schools are teaching right now. Like, having obviously I hope they're doing, obviously the doctors are doing this, right? Having a good connection and relationship to physicians. I mean, for them to get this data, I mean, this data is good. This beautiful data. I would say just kind of translational skills. Maybe having an MD being a spokesman potentially with this that actually understands the medical knowledge, rather than, let's say, a PR spokesman that doesn't really understand what the hell's going on here. Because Wall Street doesn't understand this stuff. Wall Street doesn't get this, right? Wall Street, I used to tutor Wall Street. I used to tutor Wall Street pre-analysts in Eller College. I used to teach the executive MBA, economics, and also finance and all this other stuff here for the business schools. And I could tell you, these some of them are not the brightest, right? And I'm not trying to ding off of these people. It's just that's kind of the case, and that's just how it is. In terms of, let's say, pre-medical students and STEM students, the rigor of school tends to be a little bit more at a high caliber and a lot more harder. But in any case, this is very difficult stuff, and it requires someone to really be able to dumb it down. Not saying that the people that listen to my channel are dumb. It's just that you did not get over $250,000 of education in medical school. I mean, you didn't have that, and it's not like it's not fair for you guys that like you not knowing this. Again, you could go ahead and learn about it, but again, good luck. It's hard. Medicine is tough. So having someone to explain to them, that maybe Clover should maybe have a seminar to kind of go over this and just explain to them, kind of the investors, what's going on here. Maybe they don't want to do this because other, competition, I don't know, what have you. But again, this is why, we created this channel to democratize not only, intrinsic value calculations, which no one really talks about, but I guess in this case, medical knowledge here, which is good and helpful for me because it keeps me up on my A game, again, because I'm trying to subspecialize in the neurosurgery. But it's good to kind of have this because I'm going to have, surgical patients that are dealing with dialysis, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be good for me to understand this stuff too and not forget it. So I would say talk to your investors, and I've been clear with that. I made like a sign up sheet and all that, so they understand. But ultimately, talk to Clover Health investors. Tell them that, hey, these white papers are not just standalone. These papers are all interrelated. It's not just one standalone paper. This thing is all interrelated. And I think that needs to be better communicated because the analysts don't know that. They just kind of see these people kind of like they see it as school and they don't really understand. So that's I have for here. Let me just go ahead and go to these questions here. Yeah, Clove trades opposite the market lately. Yeah, it seems like it. I'm bullish. Do you think we bought them today? Well, honestly, yeah, it's all about the earnings report, what Strong Jack was saying. Even if they have a decent quarter report, best case back to $1 and then probably walk down again. Yeah, I mean, it depends kind of what their guidance is. If they're again, so that's the thing. They went from 3.5 to 3 stars. So they're going to be paid off of the 3-star rating in 2025. So they're currently being paid actually 3.5 stars this year. So just make sure you kind of get your information correct. But yeah, the 3 stars is 2025, which is why kind of where I'm worried about. I don't want them to grow too much because then their revenue is going to drop. So I don't know how much that's going to affect their gross margins. Andrew Toy sold shares in February, according to SEC filings. Yeah, we already know that. It has to deal with tax, he has to pay taxes. So yeah, definitely Tiger, definitely kind of look into those things, So something just doesn't smell right with the stock. In a market where everything AI is being treated as gold, I don't understand how CLOV is priced at 85 and Oscar's at 15. So Oscar has more cash on hand. They have, I think, 7 to 8, 10 years of runway versus Clover had anywhere 3 to 4. Hopefully, if they're free cash flow positive this year, where the business is able to self-sustain it, then Wall Street will be able to treat it accordingly. I think in terms of price to sales, Clover is around under 0.3, while Oscar is around above a 0.6. And then also Oscar is able to still maintain growth, but again, it's still burning cash. So ultimately, they need to focus on those profitability metrics. So I hope that was a good breakdown. Out of curiosity, is Clover Health Tennessee or New Jersey? I think it's Tennessee. Yeah, it's Tennessee, right? Headquarters in Tennessee. You can see it right here. I wish they talked more about the ML models for healthcare. These guys are horrible with it. Yeah, honestly, they haven't really talked too much about it. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's something that they need to do. And yeah, so again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit it up with a thumbs up and a like, all that good stuff. And then for folks that are interested, this is our oh wow, people know, Google knows my book. That's really cool. Sorry. If you guys are interested, this is our top selling book on Amazon, The Intelligent Investor for the Modern Reader. Also, How to Find a 10 Bagger is a great book. And again, if you guys are interested with the products we offer, those are linked down below. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I hope this was helpful. Lots of information we discussed. We talked about the kidneys. We talked about the nephron, the glomerulus. We went ahead and talked about the efferent and afferent arterial. We talked about glycosylation. We talked about the glomerular filtration rate and the overall effects on glycosylation of arterioles affecting diabetes and chronic kidney disease, the overall natural history and progression of diabetic nephropathy, how Clover Assistant is able to treat and catch Clover Assistant patients earlier with a diagnosis of diabetes, and how it's able to prolong the GFR rate for chronic kidney disease, as well as going ahead and talking about medication adherence and how it's overly related to the diabetes and chronic kidney disease. I hope this video was a very great lecture, and I'll see you guys on the next one.